Adrian Cole sat high above the city in a tower of glass. The room around him gleamed with polished wood, steel, and marble, every corner neat and perfect. Before him lay a contract worth $400 million, the kind of deal that made men bow and whisper his name. He signed it with the ease of someone who had done it 1,000 times before. Outside, the city spread like a glowing carpet, lights flickering against the night sky. From this height, Adrian could see everything. Hotels, bridges, towers, so many of them bore his name. It seemed as if the whole world was his. Then his phone buzzed. A single envelope had arrived, thick and heavy, stamped with the words, Reyes and Kim Family Law. Adrian's hand paused. For a moment, the glass walls felt less like windows and more like a cage. He owned every room with a view, but not the one that mattered. Adrian placed the pen carefully on the table. The contract was signed, the deal complete, and once again he had proven his power. Yet the envelope on his desk pulled his eyes back, sharp and unwelcome, like a thorn hidden among roses. It was ordinary in shape, nothing but paper sealed in cream-colored folds. But the name printed in dark letters sent a ripple of unease through him. Reyes and Kim Family Law. He had not seen the name Reyes in years, yet he could almost hear it in his mind, soft and firm, spoken by a voice he had tried hard to forget. He slid the envelope aside. Not now, he told himself. Tonight was for celebration. By the time he left his glass palace and stepped into the velvet night, the city seemed alive with promise. His driver waited, doors open to the gleaming black car. They whisked through wide avenues where street lamps burned like golden torches. Soon, Adrian was seated in the most exclusive restaurant in the city, a place where chandeliers hung heavy with crystals and the air smelled faintly of wine and wealth. He sat at the head of a long table, surrounded by men in tailored suits and women whose laughter sounded rehearsed. They raised glasses to him, toasted his success, and filled the air with stories of money and markets. He answered with smiles and polite words, his face a mask of calm power. And then he saw her. Across the room, 3 tables away, a woman sat with her back straight, her hands folded neatly on the tablecloth. Her hair was shorter now, cut to frame her face, but he knew her in an instant. Naomi. The years had not dimmed her beauty, nor softened the strength in her eyes. She was speaking to someone seated beside her, a shadow Adrian could not see. But it was not the adult at her side that caught his breath. It was the sound. A sound that did not belong in this room of polished crystal and careful laughter. The sound of children. Adrian's head turned sharply. At Naomi's table sat 3 little ones, their voices bubbling like streams, their laughter too honest for a room like this. A boy and 2 girls, perhaps 5 years old, dressed smartly but wriggling in their seats with the wildness only children could carry. Adrian's chest grew tight. He could not look away. Their faces were small mirrors, yet there were details that froze him in place. The boy's eyes, clear, gray, and sharp, were his own. One of the girls tilted her head in thought the exact way he did when weighing a choice. And the other smiled, and in that smile Adrian saw Naomi's spirit and his own spark entwined. It felt as if the world beneath him shifted. His laughter died, his wine glass shook in his hand. He had counted deals, counted towers, counted profits, but never once had he counted the years since Naomi left him. Until now. 5 years. The same number of years as the children's age. Adrian pushed back his chair. The scrape of wood on marble startled those around him. He could not stay still. He could not breathe in this hall of chandeliers. His feet carried him not to the door, but toward Naomi's table. And there she was, lifting her eyes to meet his. The years between them collapsed into a single heartbeat. Her laughter stilled, her lips tightened, her gaze steady but careful. She did not rise, she did not falter, but the air around her seemed charged with secrets. The children looked up from their dessert menus, curious and bright. The boy's eyes locked onto Adrian's, and in that instant, the truth pressed down on Adrian like a weight he could no longer ignore. Adrian's steps felt heavy as he crossed the restaurant floor. The clinking of glasses, the low hum of chatter, the rustle of silk and tailored sleeves, all of it blurred into a distant echo. His eyes were locked on Naomi and the 3 children at her table. The chandeliers above showered the room with light, but in his vision it was only her he saw. Naomi had changed in ways that stung his chest. The sharp edges of youth were gone, replaced by a quiet strength, a steadiness that seemed carved from stone. She was still beautiful, but not the fragile beauty he remembered. This was a beauty weathered by storms, softened by love, and lit by something he had never given her: peace. Her hand reached out to adjust a napkin for one of the girls, a small, natural gesture. The girl leaned against her, trusting and warm. Watching them, Adrian felt an ache so sharp it was almost shameful. That should have been his moment. That trust should have been his gift to carry. One of the children noticed him first. The boy, restless and quick-eyed, lifted his gaze. His spoon hovered halfway to his mouth, forgotten. Their eyes met across the room, and Adrian nearly stumbled. It was like looking into a mirror half his size. The boy's eyes had the same shape, the same stormy color. It wasn't imagination. It was blood staring back at him. The little boy tilted his head with a curious frown, and one of the girls turned to follow his gaze. She, too, stared at Adrian, her lips parting in surprise. She had dimples, Naomi's dimples, but the line of her chin, the quiet stubbornness in her expression, that was his as well. A third child, the other girl, twisted in her chair to look. Her hair spilled over her shoulders in soft curls. She studied him longer than the others, and there was something in her eyes, wise, careful, almost protective. Like Naomi, she didn't smile, she didn't flinch, she only looked. Adrian's pulse thundered. He had not been ready for this. He had not been ready for the way 3 small faces could undo the walls he had built around himself for years. He stopped at the edge of their table. Conversations at other tables slowed, forks paused mid-air, but he noticed none of it. His focus was on Naomi. She met his eyes at last, her lips pressed into a firm line. The years had not erased the familiarity between them. He remembered that face too well. He remembered it wet with tears the night she left. Remembered it lit with laughter in the early mornings. Remembered it tightening with hurt every time he chose a meeting over her arms. And now here it was again, steady, calm, carrying no welcome, but also no hatred. Only a guarded patience, as if she had long ago prepared herself for this moment. Adrian's throat was dry. He tried to speak, but the words clung to silence. The children watched curiously. "Mommy," one of the girls whispered, tugging at Naomi's sleeve. Naomi didn't look away from him. Her hand rested gently on the girl's shoulder, steady as a mountain. Her voice was low, almost too soft for him to hear, yet each word cut clean. "They're mine." The room tilted. His breath caught. He had suspected it, counted the years, seen the proof in their eyes and gestures, but hearing it spoken aloud struck deeper than anything else. The boy blinked up at him. "Mommy? Who is he?" Naomi's hand never left her daughter's shoulder. Her reply was measured, heavy with meaning. "Someone I used to know, a long time ago." The words slid like ice into Adrian's veins. Once he had been her world. Once she had smiled only for him. Now he was nothing more than someone she used to know. He wanted to protest. He wanted to ask how she could say that when 3 pairs of eyes bound them together so clearly. But his tongue was trapped, and his chest carried a weight too great for pride. Naomi turned her attention back to the children, guiding them toward the dessert menus. Her voice softened when she spoke to them, full of the warmth he remembered and had once believed was his alone. They lit up under her care, leaning in to point at cakes and puddings, their laughter returning in bubbles of joy. Adrian stood frozen, a giant in a room that suddenly felt too small. Around him the chandeliers still glittered, the music still played, the world went on. But for him, time had stopped. He looked at the boy's eyes, at the girl's smiles, and knew the truth with a force that crushed him. These were his children, his blood, his lost years, and nothing in the world, no deal, no empire, no mountain of money, could fill the hollow space that realization carved inside him. The table behind him erupted with polite laughter, but Adrian heard none of it. He stood at the edge of Naomi's world like a shadow intruding on light, staring at what he had lost, what he had never known he had. The children's laughter rang in his ears long after he forced himself back to his seat. The board members spoke, their lips moving, but their voices were only hollow sounds. Someone leaned close, repeating a joke about stocks and numbers. Adrian raised his glass automatically, but his hand trembled, and the wine trembled with it. Across the room, Naomi leaned down to wipe a bit of sauce from the boy's cheek. The boy squirmed but grinned at her touch. Adrian's chest tightened. That grin, that was his grin. The same crooked smile he had seen in mirrors all his life. He could not stay. With a stiff nod to the men at his table, Adrian rose, his chair tipped, nearly falling. The chatter faltered around him. But he did not stop to explain. He left the restaurant through tall glass doors, the sound of crystal and laughter fading behind him. Outside, the night air pressed cool against his face, sharp with the smell of rain on stone. The car was waiting, sleek and black. The driver hurried to open the door, but Adrian lifted a hand. "Not yet," his voice cracked. He turned instead toward the sidewalk, walking into the city night as if he could outpace his own thoughts. But thoughts do not tire. He walked past glowing windows and couples arm in arm. He walked past boys laughing on bicycles and girls in school uniforms carrying books. Every child's face reminded him of the three he had just seen. Every echo of laughter stabbed him with the memory of what was not his, what had been kept from him, or what he had pushed away by his own pride. By the time he returned to his penthouse, the city had gone to sleep. He stood at the tall windows, looking down at the glittering skyline that he owned but suddenly despised. Each tower was a trophy, each hotel a monument, yet none of them had eyes like his. None of them carried his smile. On his desk lay the envelope. Reyes and Kim family law. His hand hovered above it. He had carried empires on his shoulders. But this single sheet of paper felt heavier than them all. At last, he tore it open. Inside was a letter written in Naomi's careful script. The paper smelled faintly of ink and lavender, the same lavender she once used to press between books. "Adrian, I did not want to write this letter. I tried years ago, and your doors were closed to me. Perhaps this will reach you. Perhaps it will not. But our children deserve to be known, even if not by you. They are bright, they are strong, and they are loved. They ask questions now, questions I cannot keep answering with silence. Naomi." His eyes blurred. He pressed the paper flat against his desk with trembling hands. Children. Our children. The words burned. He thought of the boy's gray eyes, the girl's tilted head, the other's knowing stare. How could he have missed this? How had he let pride blind him so completely? He sank into his leather chair. The night stretched on, but he did not sleep. He sat in the dark, the city glowing far below, holding the letter until it wrinkled under his grasp. Memories chased him like ghosts. Naomi's laugh in their tiny first apartment. Her hand in his on mornings when they had nothing but hope. The nights she waited alone for him while he worked late. The last argument, her tears sharp as broken glass, her voice trembling as she said she could no longer compete with his hunger for power. the door slamming shut. And now, 3 children. His children. Children who had learned to live without him. At dawn, the city brightened in pale gold. Adrian had not moved. His tie was loosened, his eyes raw. He had built towers, bought islands, crushed rivals, yet never had he felt so utterly powerless. Barbara, his assistant, knocked gently on the office door when she arrived early. She paused when she saw him still seated, the unopened blinds behind him. "Coffee?" she asked softly. Adrian lifted his eyes. They were weary, but sharper now. The fog of disbelief had settled into a storm of resolve. "No coffee today, Barbara," he said quietly. He pushed the crumpled letter toward her. 5 years ago. Did she try to reach me?" Barbara's face shifted, guilt flickering across it like a shadow. She nodded slowly. "Yes, sir. More than once." Adrian's voice was low. "And what happened?" "Your assistant then, Miss Reynolds. She said you gave instructions, not to be disturbed." Barbara hesitated. "She blocked the calls, sent back the letters. I thought you knew." Adrian closed his eyes. His hand pressed hard against his forehead. For a long moment, silence filled the room, broken only by the hum of the city outside. At last, he rose. He took his jacket from the chair and slid Naomi's business card into his pocket. The paper was already worn from how many times he had touched it during the night. "Clear my afternoon," he said. His voice was steady now. Barbara tilted her head. "For what appointment?" Adrian looked once more at the skyline, then back at the letter on his desk. His heart was no longer bound to towers of glass. "For something real," he whispered. The next day, the city was bright with sun, but Adrian felt only the weight in his chest. His car stopped in front of a small office building made of red bricks. It looked nothing like the towers he owned. No glass walls, no fountains, no gold signs. Only a wooden door with letters painted on the glass. Reyes and Kim, Family Law. Inside, the air smelled of paper and coffee. The floor creaked when he stepped in. A young receptionist looked up from her desk and smiled politely. "She's expecting you," she said. Adrian followed the narrow hallway until he reached a small office. Naomi sat at a wooden desk covered with files and books. Sunlight fell across her face, making her look calm but strong. She did not stand when he entered. She only looked at him, as if weighing his soul. "You came," she said simply. Adrian's throat was dry. He lowered himself into the chair across from her. The room felt small, yet heavy with silence. He glanced around. No luxury, no shine. Only pictures of children on the wall, none of them his. Naomi opened a drawer and placed a photo album on the desk. She slid it toward him. "This is what you missed," she said. Adrian's hands shook as he opened it. Page after page showed moments he had never lived. 3 tiny babies in hospital blankets, first steps across a living room floor, birthday cakes with candles, paintings with messy colors, school uniforms too big for small shoulders. He touched the edge of a photo with his fingertip, his son's face, his daughter's smiles. His chest ached so much he could hardly breathe. But then his eyes froze. In one of the photos, he saw something strange. It was a birthday picture. The boy was standing in front of a cake, but next to him was a tall man, smiling proudly with a hand on the boy's shoulder. Adrian's blood ran cold. "Who is this?" he asked. Naomi's eyes did not move. "That's Tom," she said slowly. "My brother, their uncle. He stepped in when you did not." Adrian stared at the man in the photo. The smile looked too proud for just an uncle, his chest filled with fire. Naomi seemed to read his thoughts. "No," she said firmly, "he is not their father, but for 5 years he has been the one who shows up. He takes them to school. He cheers at their games. He dries their tears when they cry at night. So if you want to be part of their lives, Adrian, You are not only fighting your past, you are fighting their trust in him. Adrian shut the album. His jaw tightened. A storm raged inside him. Shame, anger, fear. He had lost so much already. Could he ever win his place back? Naomi leaned forward. Her voice was steady, almost cold. This is not about you anymore. This is about 3 children who already have love in their lives. You cannot walk in and break that. If you want to stay, you must prove yourself, slowly, carefully, or you will lose them again. For a long time, Adrian did not speak. He sat in silence, listening to the faint sound of children laughing outside on the street. At last, he whispered, "Then I will prove it, no matter what it takes." Naomi's eyes softened for the first time, but her words remained firm. "We will see." That evening, Adrian could not rest. Naomi's words repeated in his mind like a drumbeat. You are not only fighting your past, you are fighting their trust in him. The next day, he asked Barbara to clear his schedule again. "Cancel the meetings," he said. His voice was sharper than usual. "Nothing is more important than this." By afternoon, Adrian drove himself through quiet streets lined with trees. Naomi had given him an address. "Come if you must," she had said. "But remember, this is their world, not yours." He stopped in front of a small brick house with white curtains in the windows. It was simple, nothing compared to his towers, yet something about it glowed with warmth. From the yard came the sound of children laughing. Adrian stepped out of the car. His heart hammered like a boy about to face punishment. Through the fence, he saw them. The boy, Noah, was kicking a soccer ball. One of the girls, Maya, was chasing him, her curls bouncing as she ran. The other girl, Luna, sat on the porch, coloring in a sketchbook with crayons, but Adrian's chest tightened when he saw the man, Tom, Naomi's brother. He was out there with them, tall and strong, his sleeves rolled up, his face shining with sweat and joy. He clapped as Noah scored a goal, lifted Maya high into the air, and crouched beside Luna to admire her drawing. And then Adrian heard it. "Daddy! Look at me!" Maya shouted as she kicked the ball again. The word cut through Adrian like a blade. "Daddy!" She was calling Tom Daddy. His legs felt weak. His hands gripped the fence. The world seemed to tilt. Tom only laughed and called back, "Good shot, Princess!" He ran after the ball, his laughter mixing with theirs. Adrian could not move. His chest ached with something heavier than anger. It was loss. Loss so deep it felt endless. Those were his children, yet they did not know him. To them, another man was already father. The front door opened. Naomi stepped out, holding a tray of lemonade. She saw Adrian at the fence. For a moment, her eyes softened, but then her face grew guarded again. "You see now?" she said quietly as she walked over to him. Adrian's voice was hoarse. They call him Daddy." Naomi set down the tray and folded her arms. "He earned it. He was there when no one else was. He never asked for it, but children give their hearts to those who show up." "You didn't." Adrian's chest burned. "Then what am I supposed to do?" Naomi looked at him steadily. "If you want a place in their lives, Adrian, you cannot demand it. You must build it, slowly, patiently, and you must be ready for the truth, that they may never call you Daddy. Not at first. Maybe not ever." Her words stabbed, but Adrian did not look away. He clenched his fists and whispered, "I will try." Naomi studied him for a long moment. Finally, she nodded toward the porch. "Then start small. Luna is inside drawing. She is the quiet one. If you want a chance, go to her. But don't speak as a stranger. Speak as someone who cares, because if you break her trust, Adrian, there is no coming back." Adrian's heart pounded. This was his test, the first step into the world he had missed. He pushed the gate open and walked toward the porch. 3 small heads turned to look at him. The air grew still. Even the soccer ball rolled to a silent stop. For the first time in his life, Adrian Cole, billionaire, hotel magnate, man who owned half the skyline, felt small. "Hello," he said softly. His eyes rested on the little girl with the crayons. "May I see what you're drawing?" The crayons froze in her hand. She lifted her wide eyes to him, silent and unsure. The page was filled with glowing shapes, tiny yellow dots floating in the night. Fireflies. Adrian knelt down. His voice trembled, but he smiled gently. "I used to catch fireflies when I was your age. Do you know the trick?" Luna blinked at him, her mouth parting in surprise. Then, slowly, she pushed the sketchbook toward him. It was not much, but it was a beginning. Adrian sat on the wooden porch, the boards creaking beneath his weight. The world around him seemed far away. The children's toys scattered on the grass, the hum of traffic in the distance, the laughter of neighbors drifting through the evening air. All of it faded as he looked at the little girl sitting cross-legged with her crayons. Luna's eyes were large and watchful. She studied him as though he were part of her drawing, a figure that did not quite belong on the page. Her fingers, stained with color, hovered above the sketchbook. Adrian smiled carefully. He reached out, but not too close, and tapped one of the glowing shapes on the paper. "Fireflies," he said gently. "Do you know what they remind me of?" Luna shook her head, her curls brushing her cheeks. "They remind me of tiny stars," he said. "Little lights that come down from the sky to keep us company at night." Her eyes widened, and for the first time, her lips curled into the faintest smile. She held up a yellow crayon and placed it in his hand. It was the smallest gesture, but to Adrian it felt like a key turning in a locked door. He bent over the page and added his own firefly, clumsy and uneven. Luna giggled softly. "You're not very good at this," she whispered, her voice like a secret between them. Adrian chuckled. "I know, but maybe you can teach me." Behind them, Noah and Maya had stopped their game. They stood on the grass, watching. Noah frowned, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. Maya crossed her arms, her little face set in a scowl. "Why are you here?" Noah asked, his voice louder than it needed to be. Adrian turned, the yellow crayon still in his hand. He swallowed. "Because I wanted to meet you." "You're a stranger," Maya snapped. "We don't need strangers." The words cut deep. Adrian looked at Naomi, standing by the door with folded arms. Her expression was unreadable. She gave no help, no comfort. This was his battle. He faced the children again. "You're right," he said softly. "I am a stranger, but I don't want to stay one." Noah narrowed his eyes. "We already have a dad." He pointed at Tom, who stood silently by the fence, his face unreadable. The sentence struck Adrian like a blow. Still, he kept his voice calm. "I know, and Tom is wonderful, but—" He looked at Luna's drawing, at the fireflies glowing on the page. "Sometimes there can be more than one person who loves you. More than one person who wants to be here." The children said nothing. Their eyes were hard, their little hearts guarded. Naomi's voice broke the silence. "It's getting late. Come inside." The children obeyed, gathering their crayons and toys. Luna hesitated, glancing back at Adrian before following her brother and sister into the house. That small look, half curious, half hopeful, kept Adrian's heart alive. Naomi lingered on the porch. "You saw," she said quietly. "They don't trust you. Not yet." Adrian nodded. His throat ached. "I'll earn it." She studied him for a long moment, then finally said, "We'll see." Adrian left soon after, but his mind was restless. That night he stood once more at the tall windows of his penthouse. The city glittered, but it no longer impressed him. All he could see was the firefly Luna had let him draw, crooked, clumsy, but accepted. He promised himself he would return. The days that followed were slow and heavy. Adrian canceled meetings, ignored calls, and sent his board members into panic. He began showing up in quiet ways, bringing new soccer balls to the park where Noah played, leaving sketchbooks at the art store where Luna visited with Naomi, donating books to the library that Maya loved. But the children kept their distance. They played with Tom, laughed with Naomi, and only gave Adrian small glances from afar. Only Luna sometimes smiled, shy and fleeting, as though holding on to their secret about fireflies. One Friday evening, Naomi finally called. "They have a school play tomorrow," she said. "The Three Little Pigs. If you want to see them, be there. But remember, you are only watching, nothing more." Adrian agreed at once. His heart swelled with hope. He pictured himself in the audience, seeing them on stage, cheering quietly. Maybe it would be another small step. The next day, he sat in the third row, just as Naomi told him. Parents filled the hall, holding phones and cameras. The children came on stage in paper costumes, Maya with a pig snout, Noah carrying straw, Luna wearing bricks drawn in red marker. Adrian's eyes shone with pride. He leaned forward, hanging on every word. But then came the twist. At the end of the play, when the teacher asked the children to thank their parents, Noah's voice rang out clear and proud. He turned toward Tom in the audience, his smile wide. "Thank you, Daddy." The whole hall clapped and cheered. Tom waved back, his face bright with joy. Adrian froze. He had been forgotten, invisible, while another man took the name that belonged to him. His chest burned, his hands trembled. For the first time, fear whispered inside him, fear that maybe it was already too late. As the applause filled the room, Naomi's eyes found him in the crowd. She did not smile. She did not frown. She only looked at him with that same steady gaze, as if asking silently, "What will you do now?" Adrian sat frozen in his chair, clapping mechanically with the rest of the audience. But inside, his world shook. He had come too late. The children had already chosen. Or had they? The school auditorium emptied slowly. Parents gathered their children, snapping pictures, clapping backs, praising costumes. Laughter filled the air like a celebration. But Adrian felt no joy. He stood in the shadow of the doorway, watching as Naomi gathered the triplets. Maya jumped into Tom's arms, squealing with pride. Noah tugged his sleeve, pointing at the stage decorations. Luna clung to Naomi's hand, her sketchbook tucked under her arm. They looked like a family, whole, complete, and without him. Adrian's jaw tightened. His chest ached, yet he forced himself to step closer. He had promised Naomi he would not push, not tonight. He kept his distance, nodding when her eyes found him. She gave him the smallest nod back, nothing more. Tom glanced at him too. For a moment their eyes locked. Tom's gaze was steady, almost protective, as though to say, "They're safe with me. You are not needed here." Adrian turned away before his anger betrayed him. He walked out into the cool night, his heart heavy. Back at his penthouse, silence pressed in from every corner. The city glittered below, but it was a city that no longer belonged to him. He poured himself a drink, but could not touch it. He sat in the dark, staring at nothing, until dawn crept across the glass walls. Barbara arrived early as always. She set her bag down, but the look on his face stopped her. "Sir?" she asked gently. Adrian rubbed his temples. "Tell me what you know about Tom Reyes." Barbara hesitated. "Naomi's brother?" Adrian's eyes narrowed. "Yes. Find out everything." She nodded slowly. "Of course." Hours later, Barbara returned with a folder. She placed it carefully on his desk. "You should see this." Adrian opened it with trembling hands. Inside were papers, printouts, and emails. The first page made his blood run cold. Tom had applied for a new job, not in the city, not even in the same state. It was a position at a large hospital 200 miles away, a position that came with housing, schools, and stability for the children. Adrian's eyes scanned the words again and again. A move, a future without him. His chest grew tight. He flipped through the other pages, emails between Tom and Naomi. The words were clear. The children will have more space there. It might be good to start fresh. I don't want them confused anymore. Adrian's hands shook. He could hardly breathe. Naomi was planning to go. Tom was offering them a new life, far away, safe and simple, with no room for him. He slammed the folder shut. The sound echoed through the office. Barbara flinched. "They're leaving," Adrian whispered. His voice was low but full of fire. "They're taking my children away." Barbara's eyes softened. "Then you must decide, sir. Will you let them go, or will you fight for them?" Adrian rose to his feet. His reflection in the glass wall looked back at him. A man in a suit, a man who had conquered towers, but lost the only battle that mattered. Not this time. He grabbed his coat. "Clear my calendar," he said. "I have somewhere to be." The sun was setting when Adrian parked outside Naomi's brick house. He sat in the car for a long moment, watching through the windshield. The children's laughter floated from the yard. Tom was there, playing catch with Noah while Maya and Luna drew on the pavement with chalk. Naomi sat on the porch, her face tired but gentle. Adrian's grip tightened on the steering wheel. His world was slipping from his hands. If they left, he would never get another chance. He opened the car door and stepped out. The gravel crunched under his shoes. The children looked up, surprise flashing across their faces. Tom straightened, his arm still around Noah's shoulders. Naomi's eyes widened when she saw the folder in Adrian's hand. "You weren't going to tell me," Adrian said. His voice shook with anger and fear. "You were going to take them away." Naomi stood slowly, her hand shielding Luna. "This is not the place." "No," Adrian cut in, his voice raw. "This is exactly the place. Right here, in front of them, in front of him. Are you moving away, Naomi? Are you taking my children with you?" The children froze. Noah's brow furrowed. Maya clutched Tom's hand. Luna's crayons slipped to the ground. Naomi's lips parted, but no words came. Adrian's chest heaved. His eyes burned. "Tell me the truth." And then Naomi whispered, "Yes." The word shattered him. The children turned their wide eyes between the three adults, confusion heavy on their small faces. The sky darkened above, clouds gathering as though even the heavens held their breath. And in that silence, Tom finally spoke. His voice was steady, calm, but edged with steel. "They deserve a father who shows up, Adrian. You had your chance. You chose something else. Now it's time to let them go." The air seemed to split open. Adrian's fists clenched. The children gasped at the heat in his eyes. This was no longer about money. This was no longer about power. It was about 3 little lives, and the truth that if he failed now, he would lose them forever. The air was heavy after Naomi's words. The children clung to her, their little faces full of fear and confusion. The yard, once bright with chalk drawings and laughter, turned into a battlefield of silence. Adrian's chest burned as though the whole world had pressed down on him at once. He turned away before they could see the tears gathering in his eyes. His footsteps crunched against the gravel as he left. But every sound behind him, Noah's small voice, Maya's soft whimper, Luna's confused silence, followed him like shadows. Back in his penthouse, Adrian paced the floor. The city lights stretched far below, but none of it mattered. What good were towers and contracts when his own blood was slipping away? He could almost hear Tom's steady voice again. "They deserve a father who shows up." The words cut deeper than any knife. For the first time in his life, Adrian admitted to himself that he had lost. But another voice inside him whispered, "Not yet. Not this way." The following days blurred into restless hours. He skipped meetings, ignored calls, left messages unanswered. Barbara watched him quietly, waiting until he was ready. At last, he spoke the words that made her flinch. "They are planning to leave," he said. "I will not let them take my children away. Prepare the papers." Barbara nodded, though her eyes filled with doubt. "Sir, once you start this, there is no turning back." Adrian stared out of the glass wall. His reflection looked tired, older than his years. "Then let it be war." News traveled fast. Naomi received the letter 2 days later. Her hands trembled as she held it. Tom was by her side, reading in silence. It was an official petition. Adrian was seeking shared custody of the triplets. Her knees weakened. She had hoped he would walk away. She had hoped she could give her children peace, but now the past had broken into their present like a storm. That night, Naomi sat awake long after the children had fallen asleep. The moonlight touched their small faces as they dreamed, innocent and unknowing of the battle about to begin. She pressed her palms against her eyes. She had fought to protect them for years, and now she would have to fight again. But what made her chest ache most was not the anger. It was the doubt. For deep inside, a small voice whispered, "What if Adrian had truly changed? What if the children deserved to know him, no matter the risk?" The following morning, Naomi walked the children to school as usual. Parents filled the sidewalks, holding lunch boxes, tying shoelaces, kissing foreheads. She tried to act calm, but inside, she was breaking. She bent to kiss Luna's head when she noticed Noah staring at her. "Mommy," he asked softly, "why did Daddy look so sad the other night?" Naomi froze. She had not expected the question. She forced a smile, but her eyes betrayed her. Noah was watching too closely. Children saw more than they spoke. That same morning, Adrian was already in the courthouse, his lawyer at his side. He wore no tie, only a plain suit, but his presence filled the hall. He kept his head high, though inside fear gripped him like a chain. He had faced boardrooms of powerful men, negotiated deals worth hundreds of millions, but nothing had ever felt as heavy as this. Naomi arrived later, holding Tom's arm for support. She looked at Adrian once, only once, and turned away. The children were not with her. They were too young to face this battle. But their laughter, their smiles, their little voices filled the air in his mind, pushing him forward. The hearing began. Words flew back and forth, lawyers speaking of rights, duties, responsibilities, papers shuffled, judges listened with unreadable eyes. But behind the cold language, the real weight was clear. 3 small lives were caught in the middle. And then came the twist. Just as Adrian's lawyer finished his argument, Naomi's lawyer stood with a new file. She handed it to the judge with steady hands. The judge's brow furrowed as he read. Adrian's heart hammered. He could not see the words, but he saw Naomi's face. Her lips pressed tight, her shoulders tense. The judge lifted his head. His voice was calm, but every syllable struck like thunder. "This court has received new evidence," he said. "Evidence suggesting that Mr. Adrian Stone may not, in fact, be the biological father of the triplets." The room exploded in whispers. Adrian's chest collapsed. The world spun. His hands gripped the table so tightly his knuckles turned white. Naomi's face was pale. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. Tom stared straight ahead, his jaw tight. The judge raised a hand for silence. "Until this matter is resolved through proper testing, custody arrangements cannot be determined." Adrian's breath came in shallow bursts. His mind screamed in denial. He had seen his eyes in Noah. He had seen his smile in Maya. He had felt his soul in Luna. How could anyone say they were not his? Yet the seed of doubt had been planted, and the fight had just taken a darker turn. The courtroom had fallen into a silence that was heavier than any noise. Everyone stared at Adrian as though the floor had opened beneath him. He sat frozen, his heart pounding so hard it hurt. The words echoed again in his mind. Evidence suggesting that Mr. Adrian Stone may not, in fact, be the biological father of the triplets. Not their father. The sentence kept circling inside his head like a cruel whisper. He turned his eyes to Naomi. Her face was pale, her lips trembling, but she did not speak. Her silence felt like a knife. If it was untrue, why wouldn't she say something? Why wouldn't she defend him? Adrian's lawyer leaned close, whispering fiercely, but the words blurred. He could not hear. He could only see flashes in his mind. Noah's crooked smile, Maya's laughter, Luna's quiet drawings. Could love like that be an illusion? Could fate have played such a trick? The judge spoke again. His voice was calm, detached, as though he were reading a weather report. We will order DNA testing to determine paternity. Until results are received, custody matters will remain suspended. The children will continue in the care of Ms. Naomi Reyes. The gavel struck once. Cold wood against colder silence. The session was over. Adrian rose on shaky legs. The marble floor beneath him felt unsteady, as though the ground had turned to water. Naomi gathered her things quickly, avoiding his eyes. Tom stood by her side, steady and strong, a silent wall between them. Adrian wanted to scream, to demand answers, to shake the truth out of the air. But the courtroom was not a place for storms of the heart. Not here. He walked out into the hallway, his chest rising and falling like a drowning man. Barbara was waiting. She rushed to him, her eyes searching his face. But he brushed past her without a word. Outside, the city roared with traffic, horns, footsteps, voices. It all blurred into a hum. He stood at the bottom of the courthouse steps, looking up at the gray sky. Could it be true? Could he have built his hopes, his love, his very dreams around children who were never his? No. His heart screamed no. He remembered the way Noah tilted his head, the same way Adrian himself had done as a boy. He remembered Luna's quiet eyes, so full of thought, mirrors of his own. He remembered the day Maya had laughed at his clumsy attempt to cook, a laugh so bright, so familiar it had pierced his soul. They were his. They had to be his. But doubt was poison, and now it was in his veins. That night, Adrian did not go home. His penthouse felt like a tomb, too polished, too empty. Instead, he drove with no direction, city lights sliding past his windows. Rain began to fall, streaking across the glass. He finally stopped at a quiet park, the same kind where fathers pushed swings and mothers tied shoelaces. He sat on a wet bench, his suit damp, the rain cold against his skin. For once, he felt like a stranger in the world, not a billionaire, not a powerful man. Just a broken soul who might not even know where he belonged. He thought of his own father, a man who had valued steel and glass over warmth and love. Adrian had sworn never to be like him, yet here he was. Perhaps worse. At least his father had never been forced to question if his own child was his blood. He buried his face in his hands. For the first time in years, he cried. Not quiet tears, but heavy, shaking sobs that tore out of him like a flood. Meanwhile, Naomi sat awake in her small living room. The triplets were asleep in their rooms, unaware of the storm that was about to shatter their world. Tom was across from her, his jaw tight. "You should have told him earlier," Tom said finally. Naomi's hands twisted in her lap. Her eyes were red. "I didn't know how, and I still don't even know the truth. There were mistakes back then, Tom. There were months when Adrian and I were broken, and I—" Her voice cracked. She could not finish. Tom's face hardened. The test will decide. Until then, you need to protect those kids. They don't need to be caught in his chaos. Naomi shook her head. But what if they are his? What if I've kept them from their father for 5 years, only to rip him away again now? Tom, what if I've already ruined everything? Tom leaned forward. His voice dropped, steady and fierce. You haven't ruined anything. You've kept them safe. That's what matters. Don't let guilt blind you. Don't forget what he chose back then. But Naomi's heart was not steady. It was a battlefield. Days turned into weeks. Adrian lived inside a storm of waiting. The DNA test had been done. Cheek swabs, cold cotton brushes, silent clinics. Now all he could do was wait for the envelope that would either save him or destroy him. His empire began to crack. Meetings were missed, deals collapsed, investors whispered of instability, reporters speculated about his silence. But Adrian did not care. His mind was only on 3 small faces. Barbara stayed close, watching him fade. One evening, she found him sitting in his office with the lights off, staring at a photo of the triplets that Naomi had once allowed him to hold. His hand trembled around the frame. "They are yours," Barbara whispered. "I know it." Adrian's eyes did not leave the photo. "And if they are not?" His voice was hollow. "If the test says no? Then what am I, Barbara? What am I?" Barbara had no answer. Finally, the day came. The envelope arrived at his lawyer's office. Heavy paper, a seal that felt like doom. Adrian sat in the chair, his hands clenched into fists. His lawyer broke the seal, unfolded the paper, and began to read. The words seemed to echo in the room, though they were spoken only once. And as the lawyer's voice filled the air, Adrian's world shattered again. The room was still. Adrian sat at the edge of the leather chair. His fists clenched so tight, his nails dug into his palms. His lawyer held the opened envelope in trembling hands. The silence stretched until it felt unbearable. Finally, the lawyer read aloud. "The results are inconclusive." Adrian blinked. The word cut the air like a strange riddle. Inconclusive. Not yes, not no. Just a question left hanging. The lawyer cleared his throat, reading again. "Due to irregularities in the testing samples, the laboratory cannot provide a definitive determination of biological paternity. A retest is recommended." Adrian shot up to his feet. His voice thundered through the office. "Irregularities? What does that mean?" The lawyer set the paper down with shaky fingers. "It means someone tampered with the samples." Adrian's heart stopped. The room spun. He gripped the edge of the desk to steady himself. Someone had touched the very proof of his future. Someone had stolen his answer. That night, he stormed into his penthouse, fury raging inside him. Papers flew from his hands. He slammed his fists against the glass wall until his skin stung. Outside, the city lights flickered like a cruel audience watching him fall apart. "Who?" he whispered to the empty room. "Who would do this?" The answer was already clawing at his mind. Tom. It had to be Tom, the man who had stepped into his children's lives, the man who already wore the role of father like a comfortable coat, the man who had looked him in the eyes with that calm, steady defiance. Adrian's chest tightened with fire. Meanwhile, Naomi sat in her living room, the letter in her lap. Her lawyer had sent her a copy of the same report. Inconclusive. She stared at the word until it blurred. Tom paced the floor, his hands tight fists. "This is good," he said. "It buys us time. It keeps him out." Naomi lifted her head sharply. "Good? Tom, this is the lives of 3 children. This is not a game. He doesn't deserve them," Tom snapped. His voice was harsher than she had ever heard it. "You know what he did. You know who he is. Do you want those kids to grow up under the shadow of his empire? His greed? His name? Do you?" Naomi's throat ached. She looked at him, and for the first time, she saw something new in his eyes, something she could not name, something that frightened her. She whispered, "Did you do it, Tom?" The room fell into a silence so sharp she could hear the ticking of the clock on the wall. Tom froze, his face unreadable. "Answer me," she pressed. "Did you tamper with the test?" Tom finally looked at her, his jaw hard, his eyes burning. "I did what I had to do." Naomi's stomach dropped. She covered her mouth with her hand. For years, she had trusted him. He had been her brother, her support, her shield. But now, had he crossed a line too far? Adrian, restless and furious, began to dig. He called in private investigators, the best money could buy. He demanded records, security footage, every detail of the chain of custody. Days passed, nights blurred, until at last a grainy video surfaced. It showed a man at the lab slipping into a restricted room, a man with the same broad shoulders, the same steady walk, the same face that haunted Adrian's thoughts. Tom. The evidence was clear. The samples had been switched. The test had been poisoned. The next morning, Adrian arrived at Naomi's house. He did not knock gently. His fist pounded against the wooden door until it rattled. Naomi opened it, her eyes tired, her face pale. Behind her, the children were eating breakfast, their little voices filling the kitchen. Adrian stepped inside, his eyes locked on Tom, who stood in the corner like a shadow. "You," Adrian said, his voice sharp as a blade. "You tampered with the test." Tom's jaw tightened, but he did not flinch. Naomi's breath caught. The children fell silent, their spoons hovering in midair. Noah's eyes darted between the men. Maya clutched her cup. Luna slowly set down her pencil. Adrian's chest heaved, his voice cracked with rage and pain. "You tried to erase me from their lives?" Tom finally spoke, his voice steady but low. "I did what you should have done years ago. I stayed, I cared, I showed up." Adrian's eyes burned. "They are my children." Tom's reply was a whisper, yet it shook the room. "Then prove it." Adrian could not sleep. The night dragged on, endless and cruel. He sat at the edge of his bed, the city lights painting broken lines across the walls. Tom's voice echoed in his ears. "Then prove it. Prove it." He would. Not through lawyers, not through courts that could be twisted with lies. He would prove it with truth, with science, with blood. The next morning, before the sun had risen, Adrian called in a favor. A friend from his university days now ran a private medical lab, one that answered to no one. Money was not the language Adrian spoke this time. Desperation was. His voice was raw, stripped of pride. "I need results I can trust," he said. "No interference, no tampering, only the truth." The friend hesitated but agreed. Adrian began to plan. It had to be secret. If Naomi knew, she might resist. If Tom found out, he would destroy it again. Adrian had one chance. The opportunity came on a Saturday. Naomi had agreed to let him spend a few hours with the children at a local park, supervised, cautious, with rules drawn like lines in the sand. Tom was busy with work. Naomi stayed close but gave space. The children ran through the playground, their laughter chasing away the morning chill. Adrian's heart swelled and ached all at once. Every smile was a reminder of what he could lose. He brought snacks, simple ones, juice boxes, fruit slices, cookies. The children gathered on a picnic blanket, giggling as he clumsily poured juice. It was then that he did it. Quietly, carefully. He collected the straws they used, the napkins they pressed against their lips, the cookie crumbs with tiny fingerprints. Innocent objects, but each carrying the truth of who they were. He tucked them into a sealed bag inside his coat. His hands shook as he zipped it shut. The weight of it was heavier than gold. Naomi noticed his distant look. She frowned but said nothing. She thought his silence was grief. She did not know he was carrying evidence in his pocket. That evening, Adrian drove straight to the lab. He handed over the bag with trembling hands. His friend took it without a word, understanding the gravity of the moment. "Give me the truth," Adrian whispered. "Whatever it is, don't delay, don't bend, just the truth." The samples disappeared behind closed doors, swallowed by machines and science. Adrian left the building with a heart heavy enough to crush him. The waiting was worse than any boardroom negotiation, worse than any billion-dollar deal. Days passed like years. Adrian barely ate. He barely slept. Barbara hovered like a guardian, but even she could not reach him. On the fourth night, his phone rang. A single number flashed on the screen, the lab. His stomach twisted. His hands shook as he answered. A quiet voice spoke on the other end. "We have the results." Adrian held his breath. "They are—" The voice paused, as if choosing the words carefully. But before the answer could come, a loud click echoed in the line. The call dropped. Adrian's heart lurched. He stared at the phone, frozen. He redialed, but the line was dead. He tried again and again, but the call would not go through. Panic clawed at his chest. Was it a mistake, or had someone silenced the truth again? He grabbed his coat and rushed to the car. The city blurred past as he raced through the night. He would not wait. He would not be fooled again. When he reached the lab, the doors were locked. The building was dark, too dark. His fists hammered on the glass, but no one answered. He pressed his face against the window. The lobby was empty. Then he saw it. On the floor, near the reception desk, lay an envelope. Sealed, marked with his name. His breath caught. His fingers trembled as he forced the lock and slipped inside. The envelope waited like a silent judge, daring him to open it. Adrian tore it open, his heart racing faster than his hands. The papers slid out. His eyes scanned the words, his vision blurring as he tried to focus. And then, he froze. What he read was not what he expected. The words on the page carried a secret so shocking, so unthinkable that his knees buckled. He staggered back, his hand clutching the edge of the desk for balance. The truth was not simple. It was not clean. It was a storm waiting to break. The city never truly slept, but tonight it felt like the world had gone silent just for him. Adrian stood in the darkened lab, the sealed envelope heavy in his hand. The air smelled faintly of chemicals and paper, sharp and cold, like truth itself waiting to be uncovered. His fingers shook as he tore the seal. The sound echoed in the empty hall, louder than his own breath. Papers slid out, white sheets that looked ordinary but carried the weight of his future. His eyes scanned the first line. His heart slammed against his chest. It wasn't a clear answer. Not yet. The page began with a disclaimer. Multiple samples analyzed. Results indicate irregularities. Further clarification provided below. Irregularities. Again. Adrian's hands clenched the paper tighter. For a moment, rage boiled in him. Rage at the system, at Tom, at Naomi, at fate itself. But he forced himself to breathe. He had to see it through. He turned to the next line. The words swam before his eyes. Subject 1, probability of paternity, 99.7% match. His breath caught. Relief surged through him, hot and sharp. This was Noah. He knew it. The boy with his eyes, his crooked smile, his son, his blood. He turned the page quickly, desperate. Subject 2, probability of paternity, 99.4% match. Tears blurred his vision. Maya, his daughter, his mirror in spirit, his laughter returned in her voice. She was his, she was real. But then, the third line. Subject 3, probability of paternity, 0.0% match. Adrian froze. The paper trembled in his hand. His vision darkened at the edges. 0, 0. The word pounded in his head like a hammer. Zero. He read it again and again, praying the letters would change, that his eyes were lying. But the words remained. Clear, cold, final. Luna. Sweet, quiet Luna. The child who drew pictures of worlds he could not imagine. The one who had always clung closer to Naomi, her soft hand gripping her mother's. The one whose smile he thought was not his at all. Adrian's chest collapsed, his knees buckled, and he sank to the floor, the paper crumpling in his fist. The silence of the lab pressed in, heavier than any weight he had ever carried. Two were his, one was not. The truth was both a gift and a curse. He sat there for hours, the paper spread before him, his eyes hollow. Every few minutes he whispered her name. Luna. Memories flooded him. The day at the school auditorium when she tilted her head at him, studying him with quiet wisdom. The time she had slipped a small drawing into his hand without a word, as if she had seen straight into his soul. The way she clung to Naomi's side, shy yet strong, not his. The thought tore him apart, but his heart screamed louder than the paper. She is mine. Blood or not, she is mine. Still. The question burned. Who was her father? The page gave no answers, only numbers, only cold statistics. Adrian drove home in silence. The envelope sat on the seat beside him, like a ghost. Every red light felt like eternity. Every green light felt like a cruel push forward. When he reached his penthouse, he poured himself a glass of whiskey, but it burned his throat, and he set it aside untouched. He stared out at the city, the towers he had once believed were his empire. None of it mattered now. His empire was 3 children, and one of them was a stranger to his blood. Barbara found him the next morning, still sitting in the same place, the paper clutched in his hand. She read the truth in his eyes before he spoke. 2 are mine, he whispered. His voice was broken. 1 isn't. Barbara's breath caught. She covered her mouth, her heart aching for him. But she said nothing. Sometimes silence was the only kindness. Meanwhile, Naomi woke in the quiet hours of dawn, unable to rest. She checked on the children as she always did. Noah slept sprawled across his bed, one arm thrown over his stuffed bear. Maya snored softly, her hair a tangled halo. Luna sat curled up, clutching her sketchbook even in sleep. Naomi brushed Luna's hair back, tears stinging her eyes. She whispered a prayer into the morning air. She did not know yet what Adrian had learned, but her heart trembled, knowing the storm was coming. Tom entered the kitchen, his steps heavy. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. Naomi shook her head. Her hands gripped the edge of the counter. "I keep thinking about what happens if the truth comes out." Tom's jaw tightened. "Then we deal with it, like we always do." But Naomi's heart whispered the fear she could not say aloud. What if the truth destroys us all? Adrian could not keep it in forever. That evening, he drove back to Naomi's house. The children played in the yard, their laughter ringing like bells. He watched them from the car, his chest aching. Noah kicked a ball. Maya chased him. Luna sat in the grass, drawing shapes in her notebook. Adrian's hand tightened around the envelope. His mind screamed with questions. Should he tell Naomi now? Should he confront Tom? Should he protect the children from a truth that might break their world? He opened the car door. His footsteps were slow, heavy, full of dread. Naomi looked up from the porch and saw the envelope in his hand. Her face paled. She knew. But before he could speak, Noah spotted him and ran forward, shouting, "Daddy!" The word struck Adrian's soul like a thunderclap. He knelt, catching the boy in his arms. Maya joined, her laughter bright. Even Luna came close, her small eyes studying him with quiet curiosity. Adrian's arms wrapped around all three. His heart broke and healed all at once. How could he tell them that one of them was not his? How could he break the fragile world they trusted? Behind him, Naomi stood frozen, and Tom's shadow filled the doorway, his eyes sharp, as though he already knew what truth Adrian carried. The children's laughter echoed through the yard, but inside Adrian's chest there was only thunder. Noah's small arms clung to his neck. Maya's bright voice filled the air. Even Luna stood close, her dark eyes steady as if she could see straight through him. Adrian hugged them tighter, his breath unsteady. How could he hold such a secret in his arms? How could he smile while knowing the truth would tear this little circle apart? Naomi's voice cut softly through the air. "Kids, inside. Wash up for dinner." They ran off happily, their footsteps light against the wooden porch. Luna lingered, glancing back at Adrian before following her siblings. That look, quiet, questioning, stabbed deeper than any blade. Now it was just the three of them. Adrian, Naomi, Tom. The envelope was still in Adrian's hand. Naomi's eyes were fixed on it. She did not ask, but her pale face told him she already knew what it contained. Tom stood in the doorway, his arms crossed, his shadow long in the fading light. Adrian finally spoke, his voice low and broken. "I have the results." Naomi's lips parted, but no sound came. Tom's jaw tightened. Adrian stared at the envelope. He could feel the paper crumpling under his grip. He wanted to throw it at them, to shout the truth, to tear the silence apart. But when he opened his mouth, what came out was different. "I can't." His voice cracked. "I can't break them, not like this." Naomi's chest rose and fell quickly, her eyes glistening. Tom stepped forward, his tone sharp. "If you know the truth, then say it. Stop hiding behind silence." Adrian's eyes flashed. "Silence is all I have left to protect them." The three of them stood in a triangle of fire. No words could soften the weight between them. Finally, Adrian shoved the envelope into his coat pocket. "The children come first. Always. Whatever the truth says, they are mine. All of them." Naomi looked down, her tears spilling quietly. She knew what that meant. He had read the results. He had chosen not to speak them aloud, but the secret was alive, waiting, ready to strike when least expected. Days turned into weeks. Adrian threw himself into the children's lives with a devotion that startled even Naomi. He attended school plays, cheered at soccer games, clapped at art shows. He filled his phone with photos of their smiles. He learned their favorite meals, their bedtime routines, the small quirks that made them unique. But when night came and the house grew quiet, he lay awake staring at the ceiling. Always the same question returned. Why Luna? Her drawings grew more detailed with every passing day. She drew stars, houses, families, and always, somewhere in the corner, she added a small figure, tall, shadowy, separate from the rest. Adrian wondered if she knew more than she ever said. One evening, after dropping the children back at Naomi's, Adrian lingered at the gate. Naomi stepped out onto the porch, her arms crossed. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Finally, Adrian spoke. His voice was low, almost a whisper. "Who is her father?" Naomi froze, her face drained of color. "Tell me," Adrian pressed. "I deserve to know. She deserves to know." Naomi's hands shook. Her lips trembled. "It's not that simple." "It never is," Adrian said. His chest ached, but his tone was steady. "I can fight for them, Naomi. I can give them the world. But how do I fight for a child when I don't even know who I'm fighting against?" Naomi looked away, her tears shining in the porch light. "If I tell you, everything will break." "Everything is already breaking," Adrian whispered. Tom's voice cut from the doorway, hard and sharp. "Leave it alone, Adrian." Adrian turned, his eyes blazing. "Why, Tom? Why are you so desperate to bury the truth?" Tom stepped forward, his shadow stretching across the porch. His face was unreadable, his voice steady, but dark. Because the truth isn't yours to hold. The night was heavy. The porch light flickered against the silence, but inside Adrian's chest a storm raged. Tom's words, "The truth isn't yours to hold," still hung in the air like poison. Naomi's eyes glistened. She gripped the railing with trembling hands, caught between two men, caught between two truths. Adrian stepped closer, his voice breaking. "I have a right to know. I'm not asking for me. I'm asking for her. For Luna. She deserves the truth." Tom's face was hard as stone. "You don't understand what you're asking. That truth will tear her apart." Adrian's jaw tightened. Better the truth than a lie. Naomi's shoulders shook. She buried her face in her hands. "Please, not here. Not now. The children." Inside the house, faint laughter floated from the kitchen where the triplets finished their dinner. Innocent voices, unaware of the fire burning outside. Adrian's heart twisted. How long could secrets be hidden before they poisoned even that laughter? He turned back to Naomi. His voice was soft now, desperate. "Just tell me, is it him?" His eyes flicked to Tom. "Is Tom her father?" Naomi gasped. Her lips parted, but no words came. Tom's face darkened. He stepped forward, his voice sharp as glass. "Enough!" Adrian's eyes blazed. "Then answer me. Why protect him if it isn't true?" Naomi's sob broke through the night. "Stop it. Both of you." Her voice trembled. "This isn't about you. It's about her. About all three of them. If you tear each other apart, you'll destroy everything I've tried to protect." Adrian staggered back, his chest heaving. Tom pulled Naomi toward the doorway, shielding her as if Adrian were a threat. But before they could disappear inside, Adrian's voice cut through the night one last time. "I will find the truth, with or without you." The door shut with a heavy slam. Adrian stood alone in the dark, the silence pressing in until it choked him. The days that followed were a blur of shadows. Adrian moved through them like a man half alive. He attended meetings without hearing a word. He signed papers without reading them. His empire ran on autopilot, but his mind was somewhere else, on Luna, on Naomi, on Tom's shadow. Barbara noticed. She always did. One evening she placed a folder on his desk. "You asked me once to find everything about Tom. I didn't finish then. But now..." Adrian opened the folder. Photos, records, fragments of a life he had never cared to study. Tom Reyes, military medic decorated for service. Later, a hospital nurse. A man respected in his field. And then Adrian saw it. A document tucked between the pages. A photo taken years ago, blurry but unmistakable. Tom and Naomi together, standing outside a small clinic. Naomi's belly was swollen, pregnant. Adrian's hands shook, his vision blurred. The photo was dated only months after their divorce. His stomach twisted. He whispered to himself, "It's him. It has to be him." But another thought clawed at his mind. If Tom was the father, why hadn't Naomi said it outright? Why hide it behind silence and half-truths? Why let Adrian believe all three children were his for so long? The questions cut deeper than answers. That weekend, Adrian went to the park where the triplets often played. He stood at a distance, hidden behind the trees, watching them. Noah and Maya raced each other across the grass, their laughter loud and free. Luna sat apart under a tree, her sketchbook open on her knees. Adrian's feet carried him closer without thought. Luna looked up as he approached. Her eyes were calm, too calm for her age. "Hi," she said softly. Adrian sat beside her, his chest aching. He watched her draw, three small figures holding hands. A fourth stood apart, drawn with sharper lines, almost like a shadow. "Who's that?" he asked, pointing. Luna tilted her head. "That's the man who watches." Adrian's heart lurched. Watches? She nodded. He's always there, in my dreams, in the corner when Mommy thinks I'm not looking. Not you. Someone else. The words chilled him. She knew. Somehow, deep inside, she knew there was a missing piece. Adrian swallowed hard. His hand trembled as he touched the page. And do you want to know who he is? Luna's eyes lifted to his. They were calm, but inside them was a quiet storm. Someday, she said, but not now. If I know now, everything will change, and I don't want things to change yet. Adrian felt tears burn his eyes. He pulled her close, her small frame warm against his chest. In that moment, he realized the cruelest truth of all. Whether she was his blood or not, Luna was his daughter in the only way that mattered, but still, the shadow of Tom's words lingered. The truth isn't yours to hold. And Adrian knew, soon, whether he was ready or not, the truth would come crashing down. The days bled together in heavy silence. Adrian carried the secret like a stone inside his chest. By day, he smiled at the children, clapping at soccer games, cheering at school recitals, pretending the world was whole. By night, he sat awake, staring at the crumpled envelope on his desk, the one that whispered a truth too sharp to speak. 2 were his. 1 was not. But which hurt more? The lie he lived, or the silence he kept? Naomi avoided his eyes when he came around. She cooked, she cleaned, she tucked the children into bed. But her face was pale, her laughter forced, her hands trembling. She knew. He knew she knew. And between them stretched an ocean of words neither dared to speak. Tom was worse. He lingered like a shadow at every visit, his arms crossed, his jaw set, his eyes sharp. Adrian felt him at his back like a constant weight, a reminder that the truth was chained. One evening, Adrian dropped the children home after a movie. They ran inside, their voices loud with excitement, retelling the funny scenes. Naomi smiled, but her eyes did not shine. Adrian stayed at the door longer than usual. When the house grew quiet, Naomi stepped onto the porch. The night air wrapped around them, heavy and still. For the first time in weeks, there was no Tom in sight. Adrian's voice cracked as he spoke. I can't carry this alone anymore. Naomi's breath caught. Her hands trembled on the railing. She knew exactly what he meant. 2 are mine, Adrian whispered, his throat dry. 1 is not. Her face crumpled. A sob broke free, soft but sharp, like glass shattering in the dark. She covered her mouth, her shoulders shaking. Adrian's chest ached. Tell me, Naomi. Tell me who she belongs to. Naomi's tears streamed down her face. She sank into the porch chair, her body folding in on itself. For a long moment, she said nothing. Only the sound of her broken sobs filled the air. Finally, she lifted her face. Her voice was hoarse, trembling. Luna was born out of a mistake, a night I never wanted to remember. You had left me. I was alone. I was broken, and Tom... Her voice broke again. Adrian's heart slammed against his ribs. He leaned forward, his voice sharp. Tom? Naomi shook her head quickly, panic flashing in her eyes. No, it wasn't him. Her hands gripped her knees, white-knuckled. But it wasn't you either. Adrian staggered back, the words slicing deep. The night spun around him. If not him, then who? His voice was raw. Naomi shook her head violently. I can't say. If I speak it aloud, everything will crumble. You, me, the children, all of it. Adrian's fists clenched. His voice rose despite himself. The truth will come out, Naomi. Secrets don't stay buried. Do you think Luna won't grow up asking questions? Do you think she won't look in the mirror one day and see what we're hiding? Naomi sobbed harder, pressing her face into her hands. I was trying to protect her. Adrian's chest heaved. He stared at her, broken and furious all at once. No, You were protecting yourself." The porch door creaked. They both froze. Luna stood there in her pajamas, clutching her sketchbook to her chest. Her eyes were wide, her little face pale. "Mommy?" she asked softly. "Why are you crying?" Naomi gasped. Adrian's throat closed. The secret had been spoken too loud. The house was no longer safe from it. Luna's small voice broke the night like a whisper of thunder. "Mommy, why are you crying?" Naomi froze, her tears wet on her cheeks. Adrian's chest tightened, his breath shallow. The child clutched her sketchbook like a shield, her wide eyes darting between them. Naomi rushed forward, kneeling, forcing a smile that trembled like glass. "Sweetheart, it's nothing. Mommy's just tired." But Luna tilted her head, too wise for her years. "You were shouting." Adrian knelt too, his throat dry. He wanted to reach for her, to hold her, to shield her from the storm that had already begun to crack open. But his hands shook. How could he hold her when the truth between them was a lie? Naomi smoothed Luna's curls with shaking hands. "Go inside, darling. Get some sleep." Luna's eyes flicked to Adrian. They were calm, searching, too deep for a child. "You were talking about me." The air went still. Even the crickets seemed to fall silent. Naomi's face crumpled. She opened her mouth, but no sound came. Adrian's heart hammered. His voice cracked as he whispered, "Luna." But Tom's shadow fell across the doorway. His voice cut sharp as a blade. "Back to bed, Luna." The girl hesitated. Her little fists clutched her sketchbook tighter. She looked from Tom to Naomi, then to Adrian. Finally, she obeyed, her small feet padding back into the house. But her eyes lingered on Adrian until the door closed. The silence left behind was heavier than any scream. Adrian rose slowly, his face hard. He turned to Naomi. "She already knows. She feels it. You can't hide this forever." Naomi's tears glistened in the porch light. "If I tell her now, it will break her." Tom stepped forward, his jaw clenched. "And if you keep digging, Adrian, you'll break them all. Is that what you want? To destroy the little piece they have left?" Adrian's chest heaved. His fists shook. "Peace built on lies is no peace at all." Tom's voice was cold. "Some lies protect more than truth ever could." Naomi pressed her face into her hands, sobbing quietly. Between them stretched a gulf too wide for words. Finally, Adrian turned on his heel. His voice shook but did not break. "This isn't over. I will find out who he is. And when I do, you won't stop me." He walked into the night, the darkness swallowing him whole. Inside the house, Luna lay in bed, her sketchbook open beside her. She stared at the ceiling, her little chest rising and falling fast. She picked up her crayon and began to draw in the dark. 3 figures holding hands, a 4th standing apart, and now a 5th shadow behind them all, bigger, darker, faceless. She whispered to herself, "Who are you?" Her voice trembled, but her hand did not stop drawing. Adrian drove through the city that night like a man chased by ghosts. The envelope sat on the passenger seat, its truth burning into him even though he had read it 100 times. 2 were his, 1 was not, and Naomi's silence was as heavy as betrayal. He could not sleep. He could not breathe. His empire of towers and contracts felt like ashes in his hands. Only one thought burned inside him now. Who is Luna's father? The next morning, he called Barbara. She arrived at his penthouse with tired eyes but steady hands. He pushed the folder of Tom's records across the desk. "It's not him," Adrian said, his voice low but certain. "Naomi denied it. She's hiding someone else." Barbara frowned. "Then who?" Adrian leaned forward, his face pale, his voice raw. "Find out. I don't care what it takes. Every corner of her life after I left, turn it upside down. Every clinic, every man she crossed paths with. I need names. All of them. Barbara hesitated. Sir, if we uncover this, it may not be what you want to hear. Adrian's jaw tightened. I don't want comfort. I want truth. The investigation began, quietly, carefully. Barbara combed through Naomi's past, old addresses, old hospital records, job histories, old friends. Adrian met with contacts who owed him favors. Piece by piece, a trail formed. One evening, Barbara returned with a thin file. She set it down slowly as though it carried fire. There was a doctor, she said, a man Naomi saw often during her pregnancy. His name is Dr. Elias Monroe. Adrian's brow furrowed. A doctor? Barbara nodded. Not just her physician. I found other connections. Financial records. A wire transfer to Naomi shortly after you left her. Large, quiet, no explanation. Adrian's hands clenched the table. His stomach twisted. You're saying... I'm saying it's possible, Barbara whispered. Adrian's chest ached. A doctor. A man who had walked into Naomi's life when she was vulnerable. A man who might have left his shadow in the form of a child. Meanwhile, Naomi was unraveling. She moved through her days with the children like a ghost. She smiled at school drop-offs, laughed at bedtime stories, but inside her chest a storm raged. She knew Adrian was digging. She knew the walls she had built were crumbling. One evening, she found Luna curled up in her room, drawing again. The page showed a woman holding 3 children. Beside them stood 2 men, one drawn clearly with Adrian's sharp jaw, the other faceless, only dark lines for features. Naomi's throat tightened. What are you drawing, sweetheart? Luna's eyes lifted, calm but piercing. The man in the dark, the one no one tells me about. Naomi's knees weakened. She sank beside her daughter, tears stinging her eyes. You shouldn't worry about that, my love. But Luna's voice was quiet, steady. I already do. Naomi turned her face away, sobbing silently. The lies were breaking. Even her daughter could see the cracks. Adrian could not stay away. Days later, he found himself outside Naomi's house again. He stood at the edge of the yard, watching Luna draw in the grass. Noah kicked a ball. Maya danced with the dog. Naomi stepped onto the porch, her face pale. She knew why he had come. Adrian's voice was low but firm. I know about Elias Monroe. Naomi's breath caught. The color drained from her cheeks. Adrian stepped closer, his eyes burning. Is he the one? Is he Luna's father? Naomi shook her head violently, her tears spilling. Stop! Please, Adrian, don't say his name. Don't bring him into this. He's not part of our lives anymore. Adrian's fists clenched. But he's part of hers, whether you like it or not. She deserves to know. Naomi sobbed, her voice breaking. If she knows, it will destroy her. It will destroy us all. Adrian's chest heaved. His voice cracked like thunder. The truth always destroys lies. Better now than later. But before Naomi could answer, Luna's soft voice cut through the yard. Who is Elias Monroe? The crayon dropped from her hand. Her wide eyes fixed on Adrian, full of questions he was not ready to answer. The world seemed to stop. The silence after Luna's question was louder than thunder. Naomi's lips trembled. Adrian's breath caught in his throat. The little girl's wide eyes stared at them both, waiting for an answer. Naomi bent down quickly, forcing a shaky smile. Sweetheart, it's nothing. Just a name you don't need to worry about. But Luna did not blink. Her small hands tightened around her sketchbook. Then why are you crying, Mommy? Why does Daddy look so angry? Adrian stepped forward. He crouched to meet Luna's eyes, his chest rising and falling with the weight of his heart. Luna, he whispered, sometimes grown-ups keep secrets. But you deserve the truth. You deserve everything. Naomi's hand shot out, pulling Luna close. No, not like this. She's too young. Adrian's voice broke. She's already asking, Naomi. She already knows something is wrong. How much longer can you keep covering it up? Naomi shook her head, tears streaming. If she learns who Elias is, it won't just hurt her. It will put her in danger. You don't understand. Adrian froze. The word danger sliced through the air like a knife. He looked at Naomi, his face pale. Danger? What are you saying? Naomi clutched Luna tighter, rocking her gently as if to protect her from the very air. Elias Monroe. He isn't just some doctor. He isn't who you think he is. That night, Adrian could not sleep. Naomi had refused to explain further. She had carried Luna inside, locking the door behind her. He had stood in the dark yard, fists clenched, watching the light in Luna's bedroom flicker until it went out. By morning, Adrian had made up his mind. He called Barbara. Dig deeper, he ordered. I want everything. Not just about Naomi, about Elias Monroe, his practice, his family, his past. I don't care if you have to break into the earth itself. Bring me the truth. Barbara hesitated. Adrian, are you sure you want this? If Naomi said danger, maybe she meant it. Adrian's voice was sharp. The only danger here is ignorance. That man's name is tied to my daughter. I will not rest until I know why. Meanwhile, Naomi sat in the kitchen, staring at her coffee until it went cold. Her hands shook so badly she could barely hold the cup. Luna sat across from her, coloring silently. Noah and Maya played upstairs. Mommy, Luna finally said without looking up. That man's name, Elias. Is he my daddy? Naomi's heart cracked into pieces. She reached across the table, taking her daughter's small hand in both of hers. No matter what, you have a daddy. Adrian is your daddy. He loves you more than anything in this world. Don't ever forget that. But what about Elias? Luna pressed. Naomi's tears dropped onto her daughter's hand. Elias Monroe is a man I wish we never knew. 2 days later, Barbara returned with a file so thick it barely closed. She laid it on Adrian's desk, her face pale. You need to see this, she whispered. Adrian flipped through page after page. Medical licenses, property records, police reports. His blood ran cold as he read. Elias Monroe had been forced out of 2 hospitals, allegations of illegal trials, rumors of debts to dangerous men. A sealed case involving missing patient files. And then, at the bottom of the stack, a grainy photo. Adrian stared at it for a long time, his jaw tightening. Elias Monroe, standing beside Naomi at a charity event 6 years ago, his hand resting gently on her back. Naomi smiling, though her eyes looked tired. Adrian slammed the file shut. He's not just some mistake from her past, he growled. He's something darker. Barbara looked at him nervously. And what if Naomi was right? What if digging into him puts all of them in danger? Adrian's eyes blazed. Then we'll fight the danger. But I will not let my daughter live under a shadow. That evening, as the sun bled red across the city, Adrian drove to Naomi's house. He parked down the street, watching. He didn't have to wait long. A black car pulled up outside Naomi's gate. A tall man in a dark coat stepped out. Adrian's breath caught. He recognized the face from the photo. Elias Monroe. The man walked up to the door with the confidence of someone who belonged there. And Naomi opened it, her face pale, her movements stiff. She stepped aside, and Elias walked in as though it was his home. Adrian's grip on the steering wheel tightened until his knuckles turned white. His heart pounded so hard he thought it would tear through his chest. The man Naomi swore she had cut ties with. The man Naomi said was dangerous. The man who might be Luna's real father. He was inside the house with Adrian's children. Adrian did not wait. He pushed the door open, his chest burning with anger. Naomi stood frozen in the hallway, pale and shaking. Behind her, Elias Monroe stood tall, his coat dripping rain on the floor. His eyes were calm, his smile sharp like glass. Adrian's steps echoed on the wooden floor as he walked in. His fists were tight, his voice a low growl in his throat. He could feel the weight of every second. The house smelled of fear. Naomi's hand trembled as she reached out. She tried to stop Adrian, but he brushed past her. His eyes locked on Elias. The doctor did not move. He only looked at Adrian with a stare that felt like a challenge. A man who had nothing to fear. A man who believed he already owned the room. Naomi's voice broke in the silence. Her words tumbled out fast, desperate, but weak against the storm between them. She begged Adrian to calm down, begged Elias to leave, begged for the children not to wake. But it was too late. Adrian stood only a few steps from Elias now. His chest rose and fell like he had run 1,000 miles. He wanted to strike him, to throw him out, but his body froze. He wanted answers first. Elias's smile grew. He looked at Adrian the way a wolf looks at prey. Then he glanced at Naomi. It was a glance heavy with secrets, a glance that spoke of nights she wanted to forget, of debts she could never erase. Adrian saw it. He understood. His stomach turned to stone. Naomi broke. Her voice cracked like glass. She confessed what Adrian had feared. After he left, when she was alone, Elias had found her. He gave her money when she was desperate. He gave her care when she had no one. But he also trapped her. He had power, the kind that did not let go. And Luna was born under that shadow. Adrian's heart twisted. Rage burned in him, but it was mixed with grief. He wanted to hold Naomi and hate her at the same time. He wanted to shield Luna and yet scream at the world. Elias finally spoke, his voice deep and cold. He told Adrian he did not care about Naomi anymore. He told him he wanted Luna, not out of love, not out of fatherhood, but because Luna gave him a path to something greater. Adrian's empire, Adrian's bloodline, Adrian's fortune. The house felt like it was closing in. Naomi sobbed. Adrian's fists shook. Elias's smile never faded. Upstairs, a floorboard creaked. Small footsteps. Then a small voice. Luna stood at the top of the stairs, her hair messy from sleep, her eyes wide as she stared down at the three adults. She clutched her sketchbook to her chest. The silence grew heavier. Adrian's heart stopped. Naomi's tears fell faster. Elias's smile deepened. The girl's voice was small but clear. "Why are you fighting about me?" The air froze when Luna spoke. Her voice was soft, but it cut sharper than a knife. Naomi's knees weakened. She reached toward her daughter, whispering her name like a prayer. But Luna did not move. She only looked down from the stairs, her eyes darting from Adrian to Elias. "Why are you fighting about me?" she asked again. Adrian's chest rose like a storm tide. He wanted to tell her everything, to scream the truth, but his throat burned shut. Elias moved first. His shoes clicked on the wood as he stepped forward. His voice rolled through the house like smoke. "Because you are special," he said. "You are not like the others." Naomi cried out, begging him to stop, but Elias ignored her. He kept his eyes on the little girl. His smile was slow and cruel. Adrian's rage boiled. He shouted for Elias to shut his mouth, but the damage was already bleeding into the room. Luna tilted her head, confused. "Not like Noah and Maya?" Naomi's sobs filled the silence. Adrian's fists shook. Elias's grin widened. He looked up at her with eyes dark as night. "Because Noah and Maya belong to him. But you—" His voice dropped low, almost a whisper, yet heavy enough to crush stone. "You belong to me." The world shattered in that single sentence. Naomi screamed. Adrian lunged forward, his fist colliding with Elias's jaw. The doctor staggered back, but he laughed through the blood on his lips. Luna dropped her sketchbook. Pages scattered down the stairs like broken wings. She screamed, too, a sound that tore the walls apart. "No! You're lying!" But Naomi's tears betrayed her. Her silence screamed louder than words. Adrian tried to grab Elias again, but Elias was faster. He seized the moment. With one brutal shove, he knocked Adrian against the wall and darted toward the stairs. Naomi's shriek echoed. She tried to block him, but he pushed her aside like paper. His hand clamped around Luna's arm. The child cried out, struggling, terrified. Adrian roared, trying to rise. Naomi clawed at Elias, desperate to tear her daughter free. But Elias was strong, too strong, and fueled by madness. He dragged Luna down the stairs, his voice cold and sharp. "She is mine. She has always been mine." The front door burst open. Rain slashed into the house. Wind howled through the hallway. Elias pulled the child into the storm. Naomi screamed. Adrian stumbled forward, bleeding, broken, but still fighting to reach them. The door slammed shut. The house shook with silence. Naomi fell to her knees, sobbing in the empty hallway. Adrian stood frozen, the storm inside him louder than the one outside. His daughter, their daughter, was gone. Rain poured over the city like 1,000 knives. Adrian's car tore through the streets, his hands gripping the wheel until his knuckles burned. The wipers screeched back and forth, but his vision was red. Only one image filled his mind. Luna's terrified face as Elias dragged her into the storm. Naomi's sobs still rang in his ears. She had fallen to the floor, screaming her daughter's name. Adrian had lifted her, promised he would bring Luna back, then left with fire in his chest and blood on his hands. Barbara's voice crackled over the phone through the storm. She had tracked Elias's car. "He's heading out of the city, north, toward the old Monroe Clinic." Adrian pressed harder on the gas. His empire, his money, his contracts, they were nothing now. Only one thing mattered: saving Luna. The Monroe Clinic stood on a lonely hill, half abandoned, half alive with shadows. Broken windows stared like empty eyes. Adrian's car skidded to a halt outside. Rain lashed his face as he ran through the gates. Inside, his footsteps echoed against hollow walls. The smell of rust and medicine lingered. His heart thumped with every step, but his ears caught it, a faint cry, a child's voice calling through the dark. "Daddy!" It was Luna. Adrian's chest ripped open with the sound. He ran toward it, crashing through a corridor, his shoes slipping on the wet floor. He found her in a dim room, tied to a chair, tears streaming down her small face. Elias stood beside her, calm as ever, a blade glinting in his hand. His smile was wide, his voice steady. "You came," Elias said. "I knew you would. Fathers always do." Adrian's chest heaved, his fists ready. "Let her go!" Elias tilted his head, his eyes shining with madness. "She's not yours, Adrian. You've built a world of glass and steel, but she is my legacy, my blood, my claim." Adrian stepped closer, his voice breaking. "She is a child, not your weapon, not your empire. A child who deserves to be loved." Elias laughed, a hollow sound that echoed against the walls. "Love? Do you think love makes you her father? Blood decides." "Blood always decides," Adrian's voice thundered. "Then let's bleed for it." The fight was brutal, rage against madness. Adrian lunged, his fists crashing into Elias's jaw. The knife clattered to the floor, skidding across the tiles. They grappled, bodies slamming into broken furniture, glass shattering under their weight. Luna cried out, her voice slicing through the chaos. "Daddy!" Adrian found strength in that cry. He struck harder, fueled by a storm of love and fury. But Elias was cunning. He clawed, he bit, he fought like a man with nothing to lose. He seized the knife again, swinging it toward Adrian's chest. For a moment, time froze. Then the blade plunged, not into Adrian, but into Elias's own side. Adrian had twisted at the last second, forcing Elias's hand back. The doctor staggered, blood blooming across his coat. He fell against the wall, sliding to the floor, laughing